this whole event is basically about access to finance. And it started by Lewis from the British Business Bank. We did an event last year which spoke about some of the barriers that we were facing as ethnic minority business owners, and we needed to have some sort of solutions, some sort of ways out. And after we fed back in a report and a live stream video, we basically gave that report to the British Business Bank, and Lewis, true to his word, came back and he said, listen, we'll honour this and do a follow-up event and follow up to see how we could make things easier and work through the landscape to support our businesses further. And so this is the reason why we've asked a number of organisations to come around the table with us today and to speak to us about some of their services. So we've got obviously a number of speakers who are going to be, you may have met them obviously out there in the exhibition stand, but they're obviously going to go a little bit further, a little bit deeper into some of the service about going to help our businesses grow. And I think today is really about exploring all the other avenues of finance. It's not just one size fits all. There are many different routes. And it's also an issue about trying to break through the fear barrier of not exploring other ways to do business. So there are great people here. They're friendly, they're hospitable, and they will help and they will work with you. And that's the reason why we brought them here today, to basically come and speak to you all. So without further ado, before I bring in on Lewis from the British Business Bank with his presentation for a few minutes, I wanted to say that this is also an opportunity for you as business owners with your ideas, doesn't matter how made up those business ideas are, those plans, etc. It's to come and give a pitch to the audience. There's no right or wrong way of pitching, etc. It's just about coming up for 2 minutes and saying why you want funding, what your business is, what your needs are, and why you should receive funding. So I want to see a number of people ready and willing to put up their hands to come up and just say, just for 2 minutes, not now, just to drop that seed of thought with you, because it's all well and good saying, yes, we want funding, etc. But there's many different ways to present and give that information across. And so we want to be able to use this space, comfortable space. We're all family and friends here, and we want you to be, feel comfortable, but use that opportunity to pitch and share those business ideas. And then basically people will give you feedback, and then that'll be another thing that you'll have in your arsenal to support you going forward. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Lewis Stringer from the British Business Bank. I think the slides will come up, and over to you.
Thank you. Do I need the microphone? Yeah. Okay. Great. Right. This is the third time. I don't need the slides, although I probably really do. And just to follow on from what Leslie was saying, realizing that pitching can be quite a frightening thing, particularly if it's the first time you. Then actually I've got some goodies. I'd like to say deliberately, but completely by accident. I've got 4 startup toolkit books that Andrew, my glamorous assistant, there we go. Normally retail for £15, yours for free. How's that? But the first 8, please just take one of those startup toolkits. I've read it; it's really useful and helpful, and hopefully at your stage of the business. So, incentive first 8. So I've only got 8. Sorry. Please feel free to do that. You're more than welcome.
It's the first 8 pitch.
I think it's the first 8 that put their hands up and then pitch. Yeah. There you go. Thank you. Second bit. So there you go. It's amazing. Had I only known, I'd have got a cheaper book. There we go. How we do? Do I need to wave my hands? Okay, I'll wave my hands. It's gone all non-technical on me. in which case that gives me carte blanche to wander around, which is what I normally like to do. First and foremost, thank you for the invitation back. It was literally in this room, wasn't it? Almost 12 months ago to the day. And it was it's very much a learning experience for me, if I'm being brutally honest, but a great learning experience. And we listened and we were listening. But again, as I said, 12 months ago, this is the part of the journey. And it's not about one-off events. It's about actually following through with it as well. So thank you for the introduction. My name is Lewis Stringer. I work for an organisation called the British Business Bank, as I've discovered over the last 6 years. And this evening, don't worry if you've never heard of the British Business Bank. Seriously, don't worry. In no way am I offended. And the reason for that is that actually, if you ask me to write a cheque for you, I can't do it. Not only because chequebooks went out with the ark, but secondly, because we actually work through delivery partners. We work with 218 delivery partners, and they range from high street lenders such as NatWest, asset finance providers, smaller, more local responsible finance providers like First Enterprise Loans. But we also do the equity thing as well. So we work with angel networks and venture capitalists to provide early stage equity funding for businesses. That's what we do. Thank you. So our mission is to drive sustainable growth and prosperity across the UK, to transform businesses to that net zero agenda that we're all wrestling with at the moment. Our role in the great scheme of things is to improve access to finance to enable those businesses to grow, set up, scale up, and stay ahead as well. Thank you. We have 7 objectives. On the basis that I've got to do my personal objectives by 12 o'clock tonight, I'm massively hoping that next year we reduce it down from 7 to a manageable number. But I want you to focus on a couple of those, which will hopefully explain a little bit about what we actually do. Having said we don't write cheques, what we do is we take government's money, your money as taxpayers, and we put it through those 218 delivery partners into the marketplace. So we tend to do that about £3 billion a year. So we're currently sitting on about £14 billion worth of finance in the marketplace, which we give as debt and equity funding, and we expect back. And because we recently took on the role and responsibility of managing what we call the COVID schemes, bounce back loan schemes, CBILS, and future fund as well, we're probably sitting on closer to £80 billion worth of funding on your behalf. So part of the role of the bank is to manage that, to make sure all of those great delivery partners, we get their money back and we give it back to government. So they give us more and we give more. So it's that vicious cycle round. But really, we came out of the economic crisis of 2007, 2008, lovingly called the credit crunch. And the credit crunch was all about a lack of money in the marketplace, and hence, because we were very reliant on high street lenders, government actually put money into those high street lenders. That's very much simplifying it, but that's probably the best way of explaining it. And government thought, well, there's got to be a better way of doing that, and that's where we were born. Therefore, our role is to avoid that happening in the future by actually increasing the number of finance providers and options in the marketplace. And that's good in terms of that particular issue, but it's also good in terms of giving you as small businesses more options in terms of when you're looking at finance. And actually, technology's moved on over the last 10, 15 years ago, and high street branches have closed. So actually, those other alternative funders have become extremely useful. Particularly pertinent to where we are at the moment is, as Government's Economic Development Bank, we also recognise that for certain groups and certain geographies, it's particularly difficult to access finance, which is part of the reason why we engaged last year. And another reason, although there doesn't need to be a reason, why we're also doing tonight's event as well. Because again, if you are an entrepreneur in Nottingham, you're probably going to find it increasingly difficult to access growth capital, equity funding, as opposed to those businesses based in London or South East. And part of my job over the last 6, 7 years is to work out why. Because we live in this technology world, why is that the case? But maybe if you want to ask me that question on the panel, I'll try to fumble an answer. Thank you. Next slide. So the way that we operate is we operate through programs that government are happy to put funding through. Bar 1 or 2, you'll never hear these names and you don't need to remember them, so you don't need to take them down. But these are programs that we've set up with those delivery partners to deliver our funding. Okay, there are 1 or 2 exceptions to that, and I'm sure First Enterprise will talk a little bit about that, is startup loans in the first instance. So a number of you I know that have come to the stands would have had a conversation about startup loans, and as the name suggests, it's a loan scheme that provides startup funding for startup businesses. And the reason why we do that is because high street lender hasn't lent to startup businesses for some time now. Okay, so we do that. And with startup loans, we basically provide up to £25,000 per person. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about that a bit later on in the presentations. What we also do to address some of the geographical difficulties that entrepreneurs and founders face outside of London and South East is also develop a number of regional funds. And again, you'd have seen from my stand outside, that's a particular area of focus for us. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that on the next slides. Thank you. This is a very busy slide. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but this basically gives you a whole indication of the various schemes that we're involved with from a debt side. So remember, we don't provide grant funding. Like a lot of public bodies, we focus on debt and equity funding, and it ranges from very early startups to providing wholesale and block funding to some of those alternative funders in the marketplace as well. Thank you. And probably where our real sweet spot sits as an organisation, and if COVID didn't happen and there weren't those regional disparities we'd like to focus on, is the equity side. So I often talk about something called the equity gap, which basically means it's often very, very difficult for very early stage businesses to raise very small amounts of money. Why? Because you're perceived by that marketplace to be a very high risk. And I'll stop saying very. Thank you. So what we put in place is a number of programs that are particularly focused on providing that early stage equity investment. Government takes the risk in those businesses by being an investor in funds. And we become quite a large player in that respect. And again, we've got a number of programs in which we can deliver that. So if you're in that position and you want to ask me the question on the panel, please do. If you want a follow-up conversation with me in terms of what that actually means for you as a business, according to where you are in terms of raising funding, we can have that conversation after tonight, no problem at all. That's my job. Thank you. Next slide. So I said I'd talk about startup loans and hopefully not stealing anybody's thunder, perhaps in terms of startup loans. Apologies if I am, so I'll go very briefly along that journey. We have for the last 10 years operated a startup loans program, and as the name suggests, we provide loans of between £500 and £25,000 per person on a personal basis, but for business purposes. So, for example, if you had a partnership business, it's the partners in the business, or if it's directors, it's the directors in the business. They effectively take out the loans as individuals. Okay. One particularly successful part of the scheme, and it has been very successful, is that the delivery partners, one of which is First Enterprise Loans, actually provide a little bit of business support alongside the money, because obviously that's sometimes the most important part of supporting startup businesses. Thank you. And we often have this conversation, don't we, Leslie, around where's the data? Give me the numbers. Okay. And this is one of the schemes that, because of the way it's delivered, we're able to measure exactly the beneficiaries that are receiving startup loans. And I'm really pleased to say, although we can always do better, that certain groups in the community do receive actually a larger proportion of startup loans against actually where they should be pro rata to the number of businesses that they set up as well. And I'm sure Jan, you'll probably touch on why that's the case. It's because of that local delivery point in terms of startup loans. Thank you. Next slide. I wanted to touch before I finish on the regional funds. It's a bit of a success story for us. And all the regional funds is about is actually providing early stage debt and equity funding for businesses in the Midlands or in the north of the country, because we do find that they struggle otherwise to access that type of finance. That's not fair. It's definitely not fair. But more importantly, all the lost opportunities just because you don't happen to be an hour down the road just doesn't make sense at all. And what we found by having local fund managers, again, one of which is First Enterprise Loans, is that we've been able to deploy that money extremely successful. And dare I say, prove the point to governments, which is no bad thing, even before levelling up became a thing. Next slide, please. So these are the latest figures as of February. I'm not sure if you ever get those total figures. No, you probably don't. It's a surprise to our delivery partners as well. But as of February, 219 of that £300 million was deployed. The fund runs till December this year. There is a second fund. I'll touch on that. We've invested in over 640 SMEs across the piece. And probably one of the proudest things for us is that actually in addition to the amount of money that we put in through the Midlands engine, the fund managers and the companies themselves have been able to leverage, as we call it, bring in an additional £311 million of private capital. That's particularly the case on the equity side, where we've been able to bring money from outside the region into our regional businesses, which is a great tick for us. Thank you. Next slide. On the back of that success, I am delighted, particularly in the current circumstances that we find ourselves around public sector funding and business support at the moment, is that we do have continuation funding beyond December this year. And actually, some of you will note that it's a bigger and hopefully an even better fund than the current fund. And I actually think because of the way that fund's funded this time around, we'll be able to put more of the funds into equity funding and early stage businesses as a result of that. That's what I'm hoping, that's what I'm expecting as well. But you'll also see that in addition to the North of England fund, the Midlands fund, there are other parts of the country that will also benefit from a regional fund. So apart from the East of England, South East and London, there will be a regional fund which will provide very bespoke funding. And we're currently going through the procurement process for fund managers as we speak. Thank you. So, I've already got asked twice this afternoon, what do you do, Lewis? And I always struggle with that one in terms of the bank. I am allegedly the eyes and ears of the bank in the East and South East Midlands. So I go from the south of Humber, Grimsby and Scunthorpe, for those of you that know it, all the way down to Milton Keynes and Luton. And what that basically means is that I have the pleasure of meeting people such as yourself and running events, but I also gather intelligence, which I feed back to the bank and then to government to say, this isn't working, this is what the banks are doing at the moment, this is what the banks aren't doing, this is the gaps that we need to fill. And that has led on to things such as the second iteration of the regional funds as well. So I'm always here to listen, learn, and find out from you what's really happening on the ground. Thank you. And finally, if you only take one thing out of this afternoon's presentation from me, it's the Finance Hub. So we know that actually, as a fairly early stage business, maybe never raised funding in the past, it'll all be very confusing to you. So first and foremost, do not be worried that you are confused, but do something about it more importantly. There are lots of options, and you're going to hear about some of those later on from other presenters. But again, I would say this, wouldn't I? Probably the best independent source of information around your finance options is our Finance Hub. Okay. So please, 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 I think the slides will come out after the event. Getting a nod over there. Please make a note of that. Please use it. Please look at it. It is completely independent, impartial. We will not sell you anything, but it'll give you the various funding options that are available to you as well. And I think that's my last official slide, other than to say, thank you very much. Those are my contact details. It's really great to be here again tonight. This is my old university as well, so doubly good. And again, if there's any other questions that you've not got the chance to ask me a bit later on, I'm not going anywhere. So please contact me. Maybe next week if you can do, a little bit end of year, busy, frantic at the moment. But I really like the opportunity to speak to you about the issues you're facing at the moment. Thank you. Thank you, Leslie.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lewis. So it was a pleasure to have you back here, Lewis, again. So for the next speaker, it's local business, NBV. You know, if anybody has heard of it, Nottingham Business Venture. We've got lovely Andrea over here is going to give you some information about what's on offer. Some of it coming up quite shortly, so you're always good to pay attention and listen.
Thank you. Good evening. Delighted to join you this evening to tell you about NBV. NBV was in Nottingham, 40 plus years ago now, actually. We're a local enterprise agency. Our whole remit is to provide advice and training for individuals considering self-employment and supporting post-start micro businesses to help them through those crucial early stages of running their business. In the last 20 odd years, we've managed to attract funding through various sources to be able to provide these services for free. So you as recipients of the business support do not pay for those. And they normally come in the form of workshops, training, mentoring support. I'm going to touch on a program that we're delivering currently, but also to stress there is a deadline to our current offer. Just to put that into context, traditionally in the last 14, 16 years, we've been funded through European funding. As you know, we've now left the EU and we have we're just using up the last of the residual money that's available. So our current program's finished at the end of June, so not very far away. There is some new funding streams coming online called the UK Share Prosperity Fund, but they are not confirmed yet, and it might not be a blanket approach like we normally get with the European funding. So it's down to local district level, as in Nottingham City Council, Gedling Borough Council, how they spend that money. So it's not coming from central government. So we could find there's a bit of a patchwork of support going forward. So touching on our current programme, Growing Enterprise, so we're delivering that in the Nottingham City area, and there are some postcodes around the surrounding perimeter of Nottingham that is included as well. We run a Starting Business programme. It's an online training course that takes you through everything you need to consider when setting up in business. So around the company status, around your pricing, your competition, and ultimately around the financial viability. So helping you through the wonderful things of cash flow forecasts and profit and loss, which I'm sure the finance guys live and breathe on a daily basis. So we help you through all that maze and understanding. If you decide after starting a business program that actually you've got a viable idea, you want to progress with it, we will then allocate you a business mentor who would work with you on a one-to-one basis to help you as a sounding board, to help you overcome any issues, whether it's you're looking to grow your business or to sustain it, or you're looking to access new markets. The business advisors have a wealth of knowledge. They're then there to support you. All our advisors have either been in industry, been expand managers, or been in corporate positions, or still running their own small businesses now. So they're fresh, daily, up to date with the trials and tribulations of running a small business. And then we have a small grant funding pot. So the grant funding pot is aimed at supporting what we've classed as low-level projects, so projects that are less than £10,000, and it's a bit like cashback. So in a sense, you have a project, you decide that you want to purchase something, and you approach us with an expression of interest. I have to say it's a very easy form to fill in. It just gives you a bit of details about your business, what you're looking to purchase, and why you're looking to purchase it. We don't ask for a business plan. We're not linked to any job creation like some programs are. This is purely around helping you buy some crucial pieces of kit or invest in some technology like software, etc., and to help your small business on its way. As I say, it's a little bit like cashback. So you get your project approved, and then say you spend £4,000, you've put in a claim to us, and we'll give you £1,000 back. So we'll work on a 25% intervention rate. If your project's £10,000, then we'll give you £2,500 back. I have to stress, though, this is last chance for application. The programme, as I say, European funding, which it is, it finishes at the end of June. We have to have all grants applied for, evidence, paid out by the end of May at the very, very latest. So we've got 8 weeks. So not very long, and we still do have some funds left. So I'd hate to have to give it back to the EU. I'd like to much give it out to small businesses if possible, but it has to be an eligible project. As you can imagine, with European funding, there is a whole rigmarole with regard to criteria and everything else around eligibility. But we take that pain away. We work with you step by step, and just make it as easy as possible to apply for that money. So if you do have a project and you're about to spend some money on some kit or some equipment or machinery or anything like that, then give us a shout, because, as I say, I'd hate you to miss out on some grant funding. So that's the EU funding. It's coming to the end, as I say, at the end of the whole contract's coming to an end at the end of June. So the workshops, the advisory activity, and the grant funding. On a positive note, we have been the first organisation who successfully secured some money from Nottingham City Council as one of our local authorities to continue delivery through the UK Share Prosperity Fund. But I have to say it's a lower proportion of delivery than we would normally have. So there is going to be support, but not as large as we would normally offer. And there's no grant funding. other than a small part that comes into play, but not until April 2024. So we've got a whole year where we'll be able to do a bit of advisory support, a bit of workshops, but no grant funding. And you'll see that the whole world of business support is slightly going through this turbulent grey area at the moment. It would be really useful if you don't already do so, subscribe to Nottingham City Council or your local authority business newsletter, because they're regularly giving updates on what's happening in terms of business support and training. And we're not the only organisation that this is impacting on. There are other delivery providers as well that's going through this transitional period. So any question, give us a shout. We'll give you an honest answer. We're an honest local organisation. But I would advise you to subscribe to your local newsletters as well, to make sure that you got your ears to the ground about what's happening with the business support on your patch. Sorry, there's no slides. I didn't realise it was going to be as posh as this, Leslie. So, but I'm around. Obviously, I think I'm on Q&A later if there's any questions or anything. And obviously, I've seen quite a lot of you, and my colleague Michelle have already this evening on our MBV stand.
No, thank you for that. It's always useful to see how we can, get access to, I won't say free money, but grant funding, which is obviously useful for depending on what stage we are at with our businesses. So next up, I think I want to introduce Rebecca, One Stop Business Finance, who's come to give us more information about the David. Yeah, do you need it?
Is that on? Testing? Yeah.
Testing. Well, I'll start and then hand over to you if that's all right, Dave. Hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca Ennis from One Stop Business Finance. I head up the Midlands team, and I've got David along with 4 other business development managers, all dotted around my area. In terms of the business, we are a private business, and we have got another team in the north of 4 business development managers and a team up in rural East Yorkshire, the old cowshed, actually. Now, we've been going, so the idea is we're friendly, flexible funding for when your banks say no. And I think Lewis mentioned earlier about the crash in 2007, 2008. It was usually you'd go to your bank previously, you'd have a business plan, and, some business managers could sign it off. That sort of went away. Now, our group managing director came up with this proposition, actually, alongside another business he had. So, next slide, please. So we're just going to talk a bit about us, what our facilities are, a bit of feedback we've had, our brokerage arm and contact details. Thank you. Next slide. So this was Andrew Mackenzie, our group MD. He was actually a sort of interim FD, MD for businesses. He did a lot of restructuring. He tended to find that a lot of these businesses needed some sort of funding, so he'd send out to all of his brokers. He then started doing it himself and realised, actually, a lot of these opportunities, I can't place it anywhere. And as you probably know, since 2007, 2008, there are still the high street banks, but then you've got the challenger banks, and then you've got so many other alternative lenders out there. And we are one of those alternative lenders. It is a bit of a minefield as well, to be honest, of where to go. So not only do we have our own money, but we can also go to the market on clients' behalves as well. The idea is sitting down like a traditional bank manager used to do and say, okay, where are you? Where do you want to be? What do you need? And we'll come up with the best solution, ideal solution, whatever's available. I think I can't remember if I said we've been going for 9 years on our own book funding, which I think's on the next slide, please. Oh, what about that bit? So in terms of our own in-house funds, and just to give you a bit of a background on that, we're made up of private funds. So it's lenders, not investors. So people lend us money. The 2 shareholders, Andrew and Amanda, they've got money in the business. And and a variety of other people, anything from £10,000 to sort of £1.5 million, and we call that our managed fund. We lend that out on certain criteria. It's got to be short term because we pay a lot for our money, so then the money we send out is more expensive. So it's got to be short term because it's got to be responsible. Should only need our funds for a short period of time. It is fully secured and responsible lending and a clear exit plan. So in terms of when people need us, it's probably when either they might have gone through a bad period of trading, it might be because of COVID or other reasons, but they've got a plan in place to get them to where they need to be. So we're that sort of short-term fix to get them to where they need to be. And then ideally, they can refinance with the bank again with a better proposition. Or it might be that they are in a period of growth, but they haven't proved themselves yet. So again, just need a short-term fix to get people to where they need to be. There's a variety of products that we do, and I'll probably hand over to Dave now, if you don't mind, and you can go through in a bit more detail about what those products are.
Yeah, next slide, please. So working capital loans, the lifeblood of any business is obviously to have some working capital to be able to keep it going, to pay its bills, to pay the staff, to be able to buy raw materials, to turn them into products or whatever they need it for. So as we've seen before, typically a minimum of 50,000 and up to the huge figure of 2.5 million. I don't think we've done many quite that big as yet. As Rebecca said, we're short-term lenders, so maximum of 24 months. Most of the facilities we write are for 12 months, but we will roll them on if the business still needs us for a little bit longer. We charge an arrangement fee and a monthly interest fee, which clearly are higher than you would have to pay to a high street bank. But of course, they're not saying yes to you. We are. And because we've got those private investors, private lenders that Rebecca talked about, we're paying them quite a bit of money for putting their money into our plan, into our fund. So we're charging accordingly based on the risk. We charge an exit fee. In return, we are fully flexible. There's no early repayment charges. So if the business is ready to refinance after 6 months, they could do that, even if the facility was for 12 months. So there's no fee for doing that. We're looking at loan to valuation. I'm sure you know that's LTV, as it says at the bottom. We charge the interest in advance. And sometimes we do keep a little bit of that interest back up front rather than passing it on to the business as part of the advance, because we just want to make sure that they're going to be fully covered and able to service the loan, service the interest. And then security that we take, clearly, if it's property, if there is some property, we're going to take a charge over that property, either first charge if we can, sometimes a second charge. But if it's a business, we're going to take a debenture, guarantees from the directors or partners, and obviously if we need to have a second charge, subject to permission from the first charge holder, we will take that charge as well, because at least that has given us some reassurance that the money that we're lending out is clearly protected. Next slide, please. So invoice finance, this is a new product for us just a few months ago. So it used to be known as factoring. There's now various different ways of providing invoice finance, and really it does help a lot of businesses with their cash flow. Typically replaces an overdraft in many cases, because a lot of banks that won't give an overdraft anymore will provide an invoice finance facility. What we find, though, is that a lot of banks will only do that for a higher amount, whereas we'll actually come in, as you can see on there, and do that for £50,000. A lot of banks won't do it unless you're looking for a facility of £250,000 or above. So we're accessing a lot more customers and giving a lot of businesses the chance to have their invoices paid quicker through ourselves financing them for them, and we'll collect the money in for the rest of the invoice to allow the customer to have basically a credit facility. And suitable business for that, typically, as you can see, engineering, haulage business, recruitment. One of the areas that we do have problems with is construction. For various reasons, the way they don't always do invoices in that same way. There's a lot of subcontracting in the construction industry as well. Next slide, please. This is probably about 70% of what we do, something like that. A big chunk of what we do is bridging loans. Less than that, because the invoice finance is coming in, and we're doing a lot more working capital loans as well. but it's probably the way the business builds up in the early days, providing bridging loans. As Rebecca said earlier, we're a short-term lender, so bridging loans is obviously ideal for that. We give the business the chance to purchase a building now when they wouldn't have been able to get hold of a long-term mortgage, and then they can just pay the interest, as we've said earlier, and then we're interested in how they're going to refinance it, which typically is to enter into some sort of long-term commercial mortgage. We can go and find the lender to provide that in many cases, so we're actually helping the business all the way through, right from the start to then actually finding them somebody to take over that finance as well. Once again, monthly interest rate, an arrangement fee, an exit fee. We're going to look at valuation on the property. If there is a residential property, we'll try and save the business money by doing a desktop valuation, so using our own skills and knowledge when we can do. But other than that, we go out to a panel to find out when somebody can do the valuation, how much they're going to charge, when they can get it written up. And we give the client the choice of who they want to use for that as well. And it's all to do with trying to save time and trying to get things done. Because one of the ways we do win business is by being flexible, by being fast and be able to complete transaction quickly. I think I've covered everything on that one. So yeah, next slide, please. So development finance, another big area for us. Already had some conversations in the room tonight with people that are looking at that sort of finance. It allows them to do anything with a building in terms of changing it, building it, maybe it's actually from the ground up. And we will provide drawdowns for them at certain key points within the project to be able to have more funding. So they're not actually paying for the whole of the funding up front, they're paying for it as and when they need it and as of when they've hit certain milestones in the in production of in the building. Once again, we're looking at various different pieces of security, taking a charge over the property that we're lending on, as well as backing that up with some other finance, some other charges from somewhere else or some other security. Similar fees as you've seen before. 1.75 million. I think we've got close to that with some, possibly even more now.
Yeah. Development is a bit more risky. That's why the exit fee is based on the loan, the GDV, which is gross development value of the sale of the property. But just to add on to this, so we'll probably go up to 1.75 million, maybe a bit more. This is what we like, very flexible. If we really like it, we'll probably go a bit more. But just to say on our development finance offering, we're a bit different to a lot of other development finance lenders because we'll put more in, which means we'll take more risk than a lot of other lenders. The 90%, don't get me wrong, we're looking more 80% at the moment just because we don't know what the property market's going to do. But that includes the land. So often it's just the build costs that other lenders look at. We like land. In fact, we love land. We like agricultural land as well. We've taken that as security. So just want to say that we're a little bit different and we'll help those first-time developers as well. They will have some trade knowledge, but they don't necessarily have to have done their own projects in the past, which again, a lot of the lenders won't accept. But yeah.
Yes. Next slide, please. So when we started our invoice finance business a few months ago, we recognised the opportunity to combine invoice finance, where we were taking security over the debtor book of a business, with property-backed lending, where obviously, as I've said earlier, we're using taking security over the property. And because we've got both of those areas covered, that's enabling us to give a greater advance on the invoices. So typically 85% is the usual amount that would be advanced on somebody's debtor book. We can actually go up to 100%, 120, even 150% or more, because we've got that additional security of some bricks and mortar, some land as well. And there isn't many others doing that. And we're finding that we've got some customers that are coming to us because they've heard that we do that, but also some people didn't even know we did it. And when we've sat down with them, as we tend to do, talk to them, ask lots of questions, get to understand their business, that's been a product that we've been selling quite a bit of, and it's definitely a growth area as well. Everything on that one, I think. So yeah, next one, please. Do you want to go, sir?
Yeah, well,
We're all about you.
Oh, look, that is me. Put that one on purpose. This is, well, this is just some feedback. We have testimonials. That was one of my brokers. He's down south, actually. And this is one of our development clients. So we've done about 4 projects with him. So we'll send the slides out so you can read through them. So next slide, I think we're about there. Brokerage, I'll pick up on this. So the other side of the business, as we said, is about understanding the client, each customer in the business and where they need to be. So we won't force our lending onto anybody if it's not suitable and there's a better solution out there. So, asset finance, for example, we don't do. We would always use partners or other lenders for that. Anything long-term, we'll always go out to market and we will help advise you as much as we can. We're not officially advisors, but we'll try and guide you to get the proposition as great as possible so we can get that lending for you. So buy-to-let mortgages, portfolio refinancing. I'm working with one of my clients. They've got a revolving credit facility, which is like an overdraft. It is secured. He's got a fantastic contract that's going to mean the business flies. He's also looking to buy bigger premises, so I'm helping him with that at the moment, trying to get lending because his bank won't lend it to him. But funnily enough, another high street bank will or is interested. So we do have SIP and SAS lending, so that's sort of private pension funding, and anything to do with refinancing, obviously our loans. We also go out to market for bridging and development. So if there is, again, cheaper rate, it's far more likely that some of the other lenders would be interested in it. We will go out to those lenders. So it's doing right by you as our clients, revolving credit facilities, all sorts of things. So there's not really much we don't know, and it's quite interesting for us as well because we do both, which is quite rare. We get to see what the other lenders and the banks are doing, so we can tell who's going to do what. And it does change. It's changed recently again, but we know as much as we can do. Or I ring Lewis up and say, what do you know, Lewis? Yeah. So it is really when banks say no, come to us, ask, just run anything past us and we can guide you in the best direction possible. Next slide, I think. So just an idea on what they look like. So invoice finance out in the market would probably specialise up to 50 million turnover. You've got property finance. I mean, we can go up to 250 million. That there's probably not much we can't access. Minimum amount is usually 50,000. Thank you. Next slide. And I hate that picture. So that's us. I'll make sure we've got our direct contact details on the slides as well. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you both. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Brilliant. No, thank you for that. It's obviously good to know what the options are for businesses going forward. So the time on the agenda is those pitching. So I know I saw a few people put hands up. Again, this is not no wrong or right answer or way to pitch, but this is an opportunity. I know people are smiling, but it's trust me, it's something which is going to be good, useful for your own personal development as business owners, and it's good to basically get a chip in and getting the nice gift what Lewis has given at the back of the business toolkit. So who wants to be first to come up? Only 2 minutes. I'll put a timer on just to say who you are, what your business idea is, what you're doing, how you need the money, etc., and just a chance to sell your business idea. Who wants to go first? Who's the brave one? Who's the leader? Yes, Claude. He's got a good idea. He's got a good idea. You want to come round? I'll let Claude. Claude is from Derby, and he's got he's got a good idea about business, and so we're just in talks with him at the moment in time. But come stand in the front, and then we can you can. Let me put the timer on first. Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Hiya. As Lucy said, my name is Claude Bahati, and I'm from Derby. I'm starting a business at the moment. Is early stage. So I'm literally building a business plan. So I haven't done so much. I'll try and share with you as much as I can. So the business is a video-only real estate platform that aims to break the language barrier using our own AI. So the way that will work is it will allow agents, landlords, house developers, and trade persons that does things related to houses, such as painters or plumbers. They will be able to build their shops within our platform, and they use our video features to showcase either their houses or their services. They will be able to retain customers. So, for instance, if you painted a house for someone or you fix someone's, you can ask that customer to become your customer in your own shop. So when other customers come to visit your shop, they'll be able to see how many customers you have, based how many cups you've been adding on it. And also they'll be able to see how many stars you have based on how much stars they're giving you. So the idea is you add as many customers as you can, and you create almost like a WhatsApp group, a group of customers, a community of customers in there. That's why I mentioned breaking the language barrier. It could be people, whatever language they are, and they can talk to each other. It gives customers to give live feedback to each other. So the whole point is, with the video features and everything, we are able to change the way houses are seen today.
15 seconds left.
At the moment, we just have like photos, which is like a frozen moment in time. Now we're able to revolutionize how houses are seen using our video features and create a community of different partners of houses and developers, and of course trade persons. Yeah.
Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. We're not going to give feedback at the moment in time. If you take a seat, what we'll do as we're coming into our question and answer session, we'll start giving some tips and feedback from the panel. So set my timer again. Who's the second one? Brave person, Azaria from Raw Talent. Yeah, I'll let you explain about yourself, but he's a formidable person in the entertainment industry here.
Oh, I didn't hear the mic, like I was going to rap. Okay. All right, I used to be within the time. I don't think I'll need 2 minutes, to be honest. My name's Azaria, which means helped by the Most High Yah. I run a music organisation. There's two sides to the music organisation. We've got the community side where we go in and we do education and workshops, and we've got the commercial side where we do events and concerts. Basically, a big issue in the BME community, well, the black community especially, is ownership. I've been doing a lot of outreach work. A lot of the outreach work, we're going to schools, we're going to community centres. Schools have lost a lot of funding, community centres are shutting down. We've just recently done a project where the city council pulled 90 grand from the building, and now we're looking for somewhere else to operate. Also, with regards to the events and stuff that we do, we run events and then new manager comes in and goes, oh, we're going to change direction, we're going to do something else. So we find ourselves out again. So basically what I'm looking financing for is with regards to getting a building. Ideally in the city centre, we know we can generate the funds with regards to paying the building. It's just a case of the initial financing to have the building so we can do the workshops and then we can do the events and stuff like that. And that's it, really.
Less than 2 minutes, thank you. Okay, thank you. So, third person who's already got his toolkit. Oh yes, so Babs, a fellow, you've got some links here with a university, I take it. So it'd be good for you to shine while you're here. Let the university know that you've gathered some wings and grown. Okay. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Babs Olufeko, and I run Item 7 in Nottingham University. We've run this for like the best of 10 to 11 years. And the usual problem, or we've been kicked out, so because the university wants to use the place for something else. And with most black businesses, there's always a time to move on or to get a place, and to get a place has been a nightmare. Currently, I've managed to find a place, and a decent place in Nottingham City Centre. They want about 110,000 for us. At the moment, we could come up with 50. So my whole idea of coming here today is to see how I can refinance the extra money that I need to put the place up. And like I said, it's a thriving business. The books speaks for itself. Thank you, guys.
Brilliant. Thank you. Well, brilliant. Okay. I know there's a lot more business ideas in the audience. Who's next? Who wants to come up next to get your free business toolkit? It can be 2 minutes or less. I can see people smiling at them. I don't want to maintain eye contact, but I know that people really, really want to come up and speak. Abijah, this is a budding entrepreneur. Is it property you're in? There may be some other things, but do you want to come up and just give a pitch? Might as well. Do you want to? You don't want to? Okay, all right. Well, what I'll suggest, Ben, speak to the business advisor here afterwards. So I know you've got some good ideas about property, etc. And I think it'll be a good opportunity for you to connect with them. Anybody else? I can see smiles. Okay. This young lady. Is it Mrs. Burrell? I think you. Miss Burrell, sorry. Okay, so I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name's Alicia Burrell. My background's in economics and finance, but I have experience working in the housing and construction sector. So my business is called Building Future Leaders, so it's all about supporting young people in the housing and construction industry. 20% of the sector is going to retire by 2027. There are a lack of young people going into the sector. It's still seen as stereotypically male-dominated. So we have 3 aims, which is to inspire, empower and transform. So we want to inspire young people into the sector through breaking down what the sector actually is and isn't. We want to empower organisations in their ability to attract and retain. So we run a summer internship programme and work experience programme and do leadership courses as well. And then we want to transform the sector in terms of showcasing the social purpose of the sector, sustainability, net zero. That's a big thing at the moment. A lot of young people care about climate change. So it's about getting young people where they are and telling them the different career roles basically that are in the sector. And we want to diversify the sector as well. So that's what we do.
Brilliant, thank you. Brilliant, thank you for again. What I'll probably do now, are we okay to go into the first video presentation? Okay. We had a gentleman by the name of Roberto Ruddy from the investment company based in London, but unfortunately he couldn't be with us here today. So he's just gonna have a video presentation explaining about what he does. It's a fledgling partnership between ourselves and Rafe Global Partners about how we can support and grow a lot of the businesses, not only here in Nottingham, but across, the D2N2 area and fit in with the landscape of other providers. So without further ado, if I introduce Ruddy, it's obviously going to be recorded video and
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Roberto Ruddy, and I am one of the co-founders of Rafe Global Partners, and we're an investment fund based out of London. I'd like to apologise for not being able to attend today, but I hope the information I'm about to impart is useful in your personal lives and for your businesses. It's a fact that in the times that we're in at the minute, Black and ethnic minority businesses are facing challenges in getting funding and investment. even though it's proven that black and ethnic minority business people are very entrepreneurial, and that we have a massive benefit to the economy in general. Over the past decade, 0.24% of total VC funding invested in UK startups has gone into BAME businesses, and just 0.02% into black female entrepreneurs. There have been funds actually created specifically to invest in BAME businesses, but there still seems to be so much more that needs to be done. A starting point, I think, is creating a culture of equality within companies and who invest in startups and scale-ups. There actually needs to be a real change in the approach to funding to black and ethnic minority businesses. Do you know that the lack of financial support for ethnic minority businesses cost the British economy $75 billion a year? So why are many investors and banks still reluctant to lend and invest to us? I feel like there is a lack of representation at board level within VC firms, and this is a key issue for us. I feel black and ethnic minority businesses and people need more role models within these environments and these funds, and this will help us get more investment and get looked at a bit more from these VCs. I also think that data needs to be utilised as a main tool to strengthen the argument why investing in black and ethnic minority businesses is a great move. Because where strong words fail, hard numbers will always succeed. Alongside VCs and investors, government needs to play a major role in openly supporting minorities and minority-led organisations. We need a clear policy for inclusive entrepreneurship. So, now, what are your options for investing and investment or funding? So firstly, most of you would have gone to banks to get a bank loan and found it a bit difficult because high street banks and commercial banks are not really lending to us. They're not really treating us with the type of respect as businesses and entrepreneurs we need to be treated. Sometimes I feel that our only way forward with this is one of the things I'm looking at is to purchase a bank and focus that bank on lending and commercial activities for black and ethnic minority businesses. So this is something me and my team are looking at the precise moment. And we're also talking to members of parliament and the government. Another route for investment, I would say, a popular one that my business utilises is equity-based investment, where we will invest for equity back. But a lot of people are worried that when they give away equity in their business, they lose a bit of power, they give away their idea, their baby, their cherished little business that they have. No. What we can do is you do give a little bit away, but we can give that back over time if a loan is paid back or whatever the strategy that there is that we put in place in regards to the funds that we're investing. We can also do debt-based investment, which is basically a loan that you need to pay back. And also during that debt-based investment, we can also take equity until the loan is paid back. Other ways that some of the businesses that I've spoken to utilise are crowdfunding, which straightforward, getting loads of people who are interested in your business to invest in you. And then there are also grants and all different funds available from charities, from the government. There are loads of little ways that you can raise small bits of funding and investment out there. And with each small piece of investment or funding that you get, it makes it easier for a VC and a fund like mine to also invest in you. So look at those things and don't just discredit them and don't just brush them to the side and say, oh, no, I don't want to get grants or I don't want to go to a charity. Sometimes these things do help. For me and my team, a light at the end of the tunnel is the fact that people like us, from our backgrounds and our communities, are in a position where we are in the process of purchasing a bank, and we will be able to help other people from our communities just like us. One of the core elements of my company at the minute is that we have a discretionary and systematic trading strategy which allows us to garner returns of a minimum of 25% annually. from this annual return that we create and that we garner, we can then use that to help and invest in startups, scale-ups, and other ethnic minority businesses like ourselves. This strategy is going to be one of the core investment strategies for our bank when we launch it. So if you'd like to know anything more about myself, Roberto Rudy, or my team, or our business, Rafe Global Partners, please don't hesitate to get in touch via social media or via our website. In conclusion, let me leave you with something positive. That no matter where you are within your business, no matter how much money you need, no matter what you feel is going wrong in your business, don't give up. Keep going. Keep going. The one thing that sometimes differentiates black and ethnic minority businesses is that we never stop. We keep going. We innovate. We are consistent. We even if our businesses fail, we start again and we succeed. In the end, you will succeed. Don't ever give up. There's lots of adversity. There's lots of blockages and things that have been put in your way for you not to succeed. But if you look around you, look at our families, look at our friends and people around us, if we don't succeed, who will? Your community needs you to succeed. Your family needs you to succeed. Your children need you to succeed. Just don't give up. Keep pushing. There are businesses out there and companies out there and banks out there and financial institutions out there that will help you. Just take the time, continue, keep pushing, and you'll get there. Thank you.
Brilliant. Pass on that thanks to Roberto in person. Now we just got coming to First Enterprise, bring it back to Nottingham City. Daniel is going to come and give a presentation about First Enterprise and what it does. Some of you may have spoken to him in the past, but he's the executive director of First Enterprise. Whilst he comes, just give him a mic. Bear us with us 1 second. I know we've obviously gone and done the pictures. So if there's anybody else who's wants to come and pitch at any time, there's how many beers? Yeah, exactly. So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4. So if anybody else wants to, I know that there's there are businesses here who want to, and there's 4 left. Yeah, get ready, and then we'll come up and give that feedback afterwards.
Great, thank you, Leslie. Good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel Carrico. I am the Executive Director of a lender based in Nottingham. We call ourselves First Enterprise Loans, and we provide funding to organisations in the East and South East Midlands region. So, let me talk a little bit about who we are and where we get our funding from. Perfect. Okay. So our funding comes from a variety of different pots of cash. First of all, we are a delivery partner on behalf of the British Business Bank. So we provide funding through the Startup Loans Programme for all businesses in the East Midlands, East and South East Midlands region. We also manage funding, once again, on behalf of British Business Bank through the Midlands Engine Investment Fund, and that's typically for loans between £25,000 up to £250,000. We have investments from an organisation in central London called Big Society Capital, that's managed by an organisation called Social Investment Scotland, and then finally we have a pot of our own money that we lend out. In summary, we provide loans between £500 to £250,000. Last year, we invested £8 million across businesses across our region. 60% of all of our lending went to the lowest 35% of businesses in the index of multiple deprivation. So we are a not-for-profit organisation, and we try and focus on businesses that are predominantly within deprived areas within the UK. That's part of our social mission. 36% of our borrowers were female, and 38% of all of our lending has been invested with people with ethnic minority backgrounds. I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about financial risk, okay? And in the most entertaining way that I possibly can, because I realize that that's really boring. So, typically, if you want to ask for a loan or apply for a loan, you'd go to your high street banks, right? These are the typical guys that you would go to in the past and look for lending. They are interested in lending money, but to very low risk type businesses. And they typically give the best rates. A lot of their lending is going to be 100% secured. They're pretty straightforward businesses. They understand it. They have certain criteria, and then you can get the best interest rates from that. Following on from the high street banks are what people call challenger banks. Banks like Metro, that's Oak North, that's Unity Trust, and Triodos Bank. So their cost of debt is a little bit higher, but their credit policies are once again a little bit more flexible. So the top row with the high street banks, their credit policies are quite stringent, quite restrictive in terms of the type of businesses that they're looking to lend to. Following on from that, you have another range of potential lenders. So this is Atom Bank, Monzo, Tide, and Starling. This is kind of the fintech banks, where you can't walk into a branch anywhere and speak to somebody. You have to do everything online. And finally, as Rebecca said earlier on, then you get the alternative lenders. So this is Iwaka, Funding Circle, ThinCax, ourselves, One Stop Business Finance. We are organizations that really sit, get to know businesses, read your business plans, read your cash flow forecasts, and try and read between the lines. Whereas the other lenders, typically the high street banks, they'll have very set criteria that you have to do. Your ratios have to be within this range, or your loan to value needs to be within this range. As you go down along that list, the policies become a little bit more flexible. At First Enterprise, one of the things that we try and promote is that we have a dedicated team. So when you speak to somebody, you actually speak to somebody. Good luck in trying to speak to somebody at NatWest or Barclays or something like that. It's all going to be done through call centers. With us, we have a dedicated team. We have an extremely flexible lending criteria. And I think that is really important because when you guys are running your businesses, you want to make sure that the lender that you're speaking to is able to read between those lines and really kind of get an interest in your business, rather than it just being a computer says no, computer says yes. And finally, and I think this is the most important thing, is that our decisions are actually made by humans. So a lot of these lenders, you'll go online, fill out your application form, click submit, and it will come back immediately either yes or no. That tells me that there's a computer in the background, some type of algorithm that says, yes, you've met this criteria, provide the loan. Whereas with us, we typically deal with businesses that have been declined already by the banks. And I think that's really important and not that common anymore. So this is our loan process, just to give people a general understanding. It goes from application form to eligibility, and I'll stop at business advice for a moment. We have a lot of experience within First Enterprise around business lending and business advice in terms of marketing, business development. I actually think that's really important, and I was saying to gentlemen earlier on, if you have an idea and your business plan is not perfect and your cash flow forecast is not perfect, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Come to an organization such as First Enterprise and say, this is where I am at the moment. Can you guys help me get to the next stage? And the advice that we were able to give is quite unique. It goes through then to the assessment. Our underwriter will look at your application, make sure that it makes sense. That's quite important, and I wish I could show you some of the applications that we get that don't make sense. And then finally, you get a loan decision. So this is what an underwriter will expect to see. And this is actually quite important because a lot of lenders, this is what they'll need to see as a kind of a step one. So application form with your details, business plan, please try and keep it as simple as possible. You need to think about, there's going to be somebody somewhere sitting at a desk that's going to get your business plan. They know nothing about your business, they know nothing about your customers, and they have no idea how you make money. So when you're writing your business plan, please try and keep it as simple as possible so that when we read it, we can say, okay, you know, they make mugs, they sell it here. This is how much it costs. This is their profit margin. Quite simple and straightforward. Cash flow forecast. Can you please include the loan that you are applying for in your cash flow? So we see a lot of people applying and their cash flows just forget about the £250,000 that needs to be repaid. That's quite important if you are looking at your forecast for the coming 2 years. And then finally, we ask for a full asset and liability list to get a better understanding of the directors and the owners of the business in the background. This can't be emphasized enough. Your business plan really needs to tell us, this is where we are, this is where we've come from. Sorry, this is where we come from, this is where we are, and this is where we want to go to, and this is how we are going to get to that in the simplest way possible, and try and not use jargon. So people in finance, we love jargon, loan to values and EBITDA and ratios and liquidity cover, etc. When you are explaining your story, just try and use it as simple as possible. It's useful because you get a decision quicker. Common mistakes, I already went through the cash flow forecast. Another common mistake is that your business plan doesn't make any sense to us at all. We read it, doesn't make any sense. When I'm talking about business plan, don't feel it necessary to write a 50-page document. Some of the best business plans I've seen are 2 pages because it's very black and white. We know exactly what it is that you guys are doing, what you want to achieve, and how you're going to repay that loan. If you are looking for advice, either speak to somebody at First Enterprise, or I would highly recommend these organizations. So the British Business Bank, the Finance Hub is absolutely excellent. Other organizations such as the Federation of Small Businesses, you have all the LEPs, Institute of Directors, the Chamber of Commerce. There is a raft of information which is available out there, and it's all for free. It can be a bit overwhelming if you try and go everywhere and read all of the information. I would say a very good starting point is the British Business Bank, the Finance Hub, and I passed that on to some people earlier today. So this is some feedback just from a couple of our recent clients in terms of deals that we've done. Once again, just as with Rebecca and their presentation, just some very good feedback in terms of the support that we've been able to provide. I will leave you with contact details for Simon. Simon is our investment manager based in Nottingham, and he deals both with the startup loans and with the main loan operations. So, and he loves to chat. So if you have any ideas or anything that you want to ask him, please feel free. They're his contact details. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. The floors.
Okay, so we're just going to bring Mike from Ingenuity Centre. I know that you're the dean of a business school. David went off early because he's got some, childcare responsibilities. But I was wondering if you could just come through just to explain a little bit more about what you do. And thank you for hosting us tonight.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me with the mic? Is that okay? Excellent. So essentially, I'm here representing the University of the Business School and the Ingenuity Centre. I'm going to keep it as quick as possible for you because I know that we've got a lot of really interesting presentations coming up. So I'm Mike Reed, and I'm the Business Development and Operations Manager for the Ingenuity Programme. And the Ingenuity Programme is based within the business school and within this centre, the Ingenuity Centre, and it's all around entrepreneurship. And what we're looking at within our programme is entrepreneurship for those who want to create a business with social value. So it's a national programme based over 3 key strategies, which are looking at climate change, communities and place, and health. And what we do is we have participants from the community, as well as from students from all across the country, come onto the programme because they've got an idea that can change the world. They want to change the world. They want to do something amazing. But they may not necessarily have the skills in terms of becoming an entrepreneur, knowing how to create a business plan, knowing how to create their financial forecast, all the things that we know are so important when looking to start your business. So that's what our program does. We foster that idea during the first cycle. We help build those skills in terms of building a business plan, looking at their social impact, looking at how to manage their financials, looking at pitching, all those things. And then we have a competition for our participants to win seed funding to help make their business a reality. And that's the Ingenuity Programme in a nutshell. But we're just a very small part of this centre and of the business school. Within the centre itself, we have what's called our Ingenuity Lab, and that is our incubation space for businesses. So they are businesses that are set up, that are trading, and they come and they stay in the lab. They can have their post delivered there, they can be a physical member there, and the membership involves different networking opportunities, invites to events, co-working spaces and working spaces, and everything that's needed. We then also have the business school itself, which provides numerous help to small businesses and startups, including our Help to Grow scheme that you'll see some leaflets on the chair, as well as a lot of other things that the university provide. So I just want to say thank you for coming, first of all. We as a university want to reach out to the community and connect with our businesses. So I want to say thank you all for coming. Thank you, Leslie, for having your event here.
Welcome.
And if anyone does want to speak to me about Ingenuity, about the business school, about anything else, feel free to catch me. I'll be outside afterwards. Thank you very
Brilliant.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. Brilliant. Yeah, for it. Okay. No, thank you for that, Mike. It's really appreciated. Now we're just coming to the section where we're going to have some feedback on some of the pitches. So if I can call back up to the stage, Daniel from First Enterprise, if you'd like to come from, grab a microphone if you can. Rebecca, would you like to come up? Andrea? Yeah, you might as well. Yeah, you could take a seat. Yeah, so it's all relaxed. Some nice warm seats for you. It'll be okay. And Big Boss himself, Mr. Lewis, with the four left paper. I'll have to share a microphone. So, first of all, thank you for obviously giving up your time to give the businesses some idea about what's brilliant. Okay, brilliant. Yeah, nice one. What's on offer, and we just want to just build upon that by just having a Q&A session, just so that we can dive a bit more deeper, explain any questions that people may have, and just give you the opportunity to build upon anything in your presentations which some of the audience may not be fully understanding. So, but before I do that, I just wanted to say from the presentations that you heard, we heard about around about four pitches, and just if we could just give a little bit of feedback of any points that you think are pertinent, what was possibly missed in some of those pitches, what could be improved on, and anything which is going to be of use. So we're having it anonymized in a sense, but it'll be for everybody to learn from everybody else about some of the pitches. So if I start with Lewis and then work our way down.
So one of the really great parts of my role is that I regularly see pitches. So first and foremost, to all four that came up, massive congratulations. It takes a lot to do that. So first and foremost, the mere fact you've done it will put you in a better position for doing it afterwards. 2 minutes is quite a short one. It's called an elevator pitch. So you've got to bear in mind, short amount of time, you've got to get as much information in. So anybody that teaches pitching will say there's some basics that you need to do. The first is called the hook. Daniel talked about the story. The story is the hook. And the hook is getting people's attention. And often it's about personalising it. So, Claude, I know, for example, that part of the reason for your business is because your partner is in Rwanda and you're looking at buying premises and you struggle to do that because you never had any vision. So that hook is the most crucial thing. So once you're personalised and got that hook, you've got people involved and invested already in your story, because it is a story. Any pitch for investment is about a problem, articulating the problem, providing the solution, talking about yourself, because a lot of investors at early stage invest in the person, and thirdly, the numbers and the exit, how they're going to get their money back. And those are pretty much the 5 basic things that you'll need to do in a pitch of any length of time. So that's your general structure. You need to work around that. But that hook starts the whole of the rest of that pitch. So personalising it, because you've told me, personalising in that way is the way of getting people's interest and making it human and making them realise what it's all about. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
The only thing I would add from that really then is around practice. Because, as you say, it is quite a challenge to sit up here and like speak about your business. So it's around practice and it's around clearly articulating your business idea. Because out of the ones I heard a couple of times, I was thinking I haven't quite got what your business is. So, but again, I think that comes with practice. So it is, in a sense, standing there and rehearsing it in front of as many audiences as you can. And they talk about elevator pitch, don't they? Because about standing in an elevator and telling somebody what you're doing from one floor to the next, and you've got to get your story across.
I think you've probably covered most of it, Lewis. No, I absolutely agree. And it was interesting, but yeah, definitely be really clear. A bit like Danny mentioning with the business plans. It's so easy to put too much information into it. You as well, 60 page, maximum. But yes, you've got a short period of time to get the most relevant points out there as soon as possible, and just let people know exactly what you want. Maybe even timescales of when you need it and what you've done so far. So, and I'd be really interested. I'm sorry, I forgot your name, the lady, to have a chat with you about construction, because I don't know, you're totally right. And we've got a lot of developers and construction clients and just people that we know. So it might be good to connect and see who I can introduce you to. That's just a side note.
It's good. So I realize that standing up in front of strangers and talking about your business is difficult. What I've done for myself before in the past is I've watched a lot of TED Talks, and I can really recommend that. If you search for maybe the 10 or 15 most popular TED Talks and watch them, you'll see that there's a common theme across them, and it's a very visual, their presentations are very visual and sometimes funny and sometimes wacky. And I think it's all about practice, and I think it's all about getting your message across. But most importantly, it's trying to connect with strangers that you've never met before in a very short period of time, and practice as much as you can and to as many people as you possibly can, and never give up as Roberto was saying.
Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, so now we're just going to go into a phase where we just want to just get the audience to ask questions. So I know that a lot of you have got many questions out there. There's no wrong or right questions. You've all got personal stages where you're at with your own businesses, and I think it'd be good just to ask you, any of the panel members, what are some of the things that are burning on your heart that you want to get off your chest and you want to post to them. So I'll use the mic just to go around and just people just put up your hands and ask any questions of a panel, and throw it open to the floor. So if you'd like to start with your name and where you're from, give yourself a plug.
So good evening, everyone. My name's Nicole Dueni, and I am a business expansion specialist at Investor Nottingham. Essentially, we help businesses with their growth plans and signpost to organizations such as yourselves when it comes to the questions around financing. I know I've emailed Lewis many a time and also referred businesses to NBV and also First Enterprise. But my question was around Babs's. He mentioned that he had 50,000 and was trying to raise the remaining amount. In terms of kind of that sort of pitch, is there anyone match funding at the moment? I might have missed it in the presentations, but is there any match funding available? And for a problem like that, where obviously they have some of the capital, if not nearly just over half, what are the opportunities there? Because there are clients who do have part of the money there, and often I'm asked about match funding. So just a question on what your organizations offer there.
Thank you.
So from a commercial finance point of view, try to get away from match funding. Match funding, through no fault of yours, is very much a grant funding mentality, as in grant will pay a certain proportion of. A commercial funder will look at the commercial proposition and evaluate it against things such as serviceability. Is this business generating enough cash to service that greater amount of debt? Or is there sufficient security in the assets to enable additional funding to be done? So first and foremost, and I'm not sure if he's in the room or has left, I think, sorry, sir, there you go. He's ready to get to the bottom of a little bit more of the detail, because these guys will want to crunch the numbers, see what they're lending against to see whether or not it works, because the worst thing you can do is be over leveraged, be lent too much money which you cannot service, repay back. So get away from, for commercial funding, try to get away from some of the public sector terminology that I know Nicole, myself and others have to live with and do. It's really the proposition you're presenting and whether or not you can actually take additional debt and you can service it, and there's sufficient security where these guys want to take security to enable you to get that further. So it's very much the devil's in the detail in that respect. But don't try to see it too much as match funding. It's, does it make sense? Is it something you can service, and is the risk sufficient for someone to lend you additional funding? And they'll be looking at your ability as much as their own criteria as well, because they won't want to lend you. They're responsible finance providers. They won't want to lend you if it's the wrong thing to do ultimately. I'll probably pass over at this stage.
Yeah, and I don't know much about match funding, to be perfectly honest. I don't know what's available out there. But yeah, we'll look at certain things. So the lenders we'll go to, they all have different things they like. They all have a minimum of what they'll lend as well. So in terms of what, by the sounds of it, the amount you're putting in, we can have a conversation, myself or David or both of us with you. There's a lot of banks that will, their minimum's probably a bit higher than that, but there are still banks that will lend whatever it is, 60,000. You mentioned that it's a thriving business, so that's good. So they want to see what you've done in the last 2-3 years, and then what your forecasts look like for the next probably 2 years. And if that all looks healthy, you've got a fantastic deposit to put in, so that will go a long way. And it's, so you're going to be, it's owner occupied, so you'll be running, so some banks don't like owner occupied, some only like owner occupied, some like investment. So it's just finding, it's not match funding, but matchmaking in terms of finding the right lender to help you. But yes, you're right, devil's in the detail, but it's down to the numbers again, mostly.
I think what's really interesting, if you look at the investment side of things, again, having that existing funding in place actually de-risks it for that other investor. So somebody's always looking for, are we the only one in this deal? Are we the only one taking all the risk? So the fact that you've got a substantial amount towards the overall amount you're looking for is actually a really positive thing. But again, it comes down to the numbers. Is there sufficient security in what you're looking to purchase to allow other lenders to service that loan as well? But see, it's a positive thing to build on and have that discussion with lenders and investors.
Sorry,
One quick question.
say you.
Okay, I'm Babs Olufeko. I run Item 7 in Nottingham University. Basically, it's an Afro-Caribbean restaurant. We've been on in the university for like 11 years. At the moment, we're trying to go mainstream, so hence while we're trying to get a place in the city centre, we've got a lot of Afro-Caribbean and West African students in Nottingham, and it keeps growing. So basically, one of the things I've been thinking of, and I just need an advice on this. One of the things I've been thinking of is also in order to raise this money, if I was to put a second charge on a mortgage, would that be a decent thing to do?
I think it depends on the lender that you speak to. So some lenders would like that, others won't. I think if I was in your position, I would probably be speaking to a commercial finance broker where you can say to them, this is who we are, this is what we would like to achieve. And they typically have relationships with sometimes hundreds of lenders, and they will ask you a range of questions, and they have a spreadsheet where they'll plug it all in and go, these are the 5, 6, 7 lenders that I think it's worth approaching. But it sounds like, just from the very small information that we have, that you're in a much better position than a lot of other people. So don't be disheartened by that. Just try and speak to somebody like a commercial finance broker, or alternatively, and I think that this is what sets alternative lenders apart from the high street banks. If we can't help you, we'll pick up the phone and say, I think you should speak to somebody like Rebecca, or I think you should speak to BCRS or Finance for Enterprise, or we'll always try and point you in another direction of another lender who may be able to help, rather than just saying, sorry, it's been declined, good luck.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. Any other questions for him? Any more burning questions? There must be some out there, so okay.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Emeka, and so I'm an IT consultant and run 2 small businesses here in Nottingham. So my question is, out of all of these funding that we've covered today, do you have anyone that would allow business to scale, like 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, before you start paying back?
So repayment holidays. Yeah.
Yes. So some lenders will be flexible and provide a repayment holiday for the first 3 or 6 months of the loan. It's a discussion that you would need to have with that particular lender. But there is a lot of flexibility. And one other thing that I just want to say is, I used to work in a bank in the 7 and 8 financial crisis. From then to now, businesses have a lot more funding options available. In fact, it's ridiculous the amounts of options that they have. So I think my advice to you would be, have those discussions with somebody up front, because there are some organizations that would be happy to have a capital and interest repayment holiday at the beginning. It is very common. It's not unusual what you're asking for. Just have those discussions with people. Yeah.
Lewis,
Can I ask you a question?
yes, go ahead. You might as well.
So, just following on from your guest speaker earlier, because that's the crux of the issue, isn't it? And we've had this discussion before. You very kindly represented the region in what's called the Alone Together report. Remember that one?
Yep.
In terms of some of its conclusions. That was a report the bank produced where it generated some of those really frightening numbers that you heard from the guest speaker in terms of female founders, people from ethnic minority backgrounds, and female ethnic minority background businesses. Crikey, it's percentages. It's percentages of percentages. What's your? I want to ask you what your view is about that, because we've had a discussion about it. We're having presentations today. We had an event last week. It's not moving, is it? The dial's not moving.
No. And if we're honest, those who hold the positions of power and the resources to those finances have, in a sense, their own agenda. And I'm more thinking that, okay, you've got your own agenda, you've got your own criteria about how and who you want to lend to. But I think it goes slightly deeper than just, certain institutions, certain people's agenda about what they actually want. There's a bigger thing at play here at the moment in time, and that is the economy. And the economy doesn't care where the money comes from. And just like we know, I'm trying not to be political because I think we're in something's called purdah at the moment in time. But but one of the challenges is when we made a decision as a country to take the vote where we would leave the EU, that's starting to have consequences about how well businesses are doing, how well they're performing, etc. One of the great things that we've got here in the UK is the diversity of businesses from across the globe. So we've got people here from the continent of Africa, Asia, elsewhere. And just like other prime ministers have done in the past, and DIT are doing it at the moment in time, is starting to look to those Commonwealth countries, starting to look to Africa, Asia, etc., for new business opportunities, because we've lost those opportunities via the EU. I'm saying, and Be Global is actually saying, and the information we've got and from our members, what they're saying is that, look, do business with us. We can do business back in their home countries. And it's that opportunity, what we're saying, is actually out there. And so I think it's about, I won't say it's taking a risk, because I think all risk is calculated. However, it's more important to start branching out from a typical frame of people who normally get access to finance, to start widening that and then start seeing the return on investment, because it's all business at the end of the day. And I believe through the businesses who we work with, the way that they do business, how they're growing, etc., how they're persevering, is that we will definitely see that return on investment. But it just takes some innovatory, lenders and people who've got will and vision to put basically the money where the mouth is, so that we can actually start seeing a return. Because you'll start seeing, employment rates rising, business rates, startup rates rising, and actually just more productivity in local areas. So I think now's the time for us to start doing something new, start doing something innovatory, so that we can, start bringing money back to our local economies. Well, yeah. Nicole, yes. Again, no, question.
I was going to say, in terms of that question that you asked around underfunding of Black businesses, female-led businesses, Black female-led businesses, and so on and so forth, I think representation across all levels of governance is really important. In some of these institutions, in banking, we still have a lot of it might be diverse at the when you at point of contact, at the cashiers, the advisors, but right at the top of the organization, what is the strategy? What are our ambitions? And actually that top-down approach, because people working in those organizations are following direction and strategy. And unfortunately, businesses are always, whether big or small, just trying to get on, and doing something different is effort. And they tend to not want to make the effort or go the extra mile. This is a glaring figure. These are figures that we can't hide behind. They are there. Why are they there? What are we doing? And I don't think businesses are holding themselves accountable and actually saying, okay, so what have we done with these figures? So I think the question that I would be asking organizations like the banks is, with those figures, what have you done differently? What do your boardrooms look like? What do your senior managers look like? Because it's a culture change, it's opening up of opportunities, and it can't be just one solution. I think there's obviously the things Leslie was talking about around strategy, the world around us, global opportunities, but right here in England with the organizations that have the power to change people's lives, unlock opportunities, what do your organizations reflect the communities you say you serve? And often they don't. And then they wonder why they are missing a trick. And then even if they don't look like the communities they serve, are they willing to go the extra mile? And often they're not. and they wonder why they're missing a trick. You know, they'll only celebrate Black History Month because there's a Black person in the organization, not because you can Google half the information you need for Black History Month on Google, you know, or if it is International Women's Day, they'll only celebrate it because a woman has said, it's International Women's Day, what are we doing? I think true allyship and true change is when we actually look at the problem as everyone's problem, not just the people who are actually, who are the ones who are, you know, being disenfranchised or not supported or not given the funds they hopefully deserve.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you. A round of applause. Yes, yes. Good. Did you want to come back?
Well, I was going to say, to be honest, we're probably too small to even record any sort of data like that. But I totally agree with what you're saying in terms of us. I suppose we look at it very much. Not that we'll lend to anyone. We'll lend to anyone that has that just has a story and wants to do well. So yeah, it's interesting though, because we probably don't, because we're so small, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't be measuring these sorts of things, and we're not. So it's a good point.
And we measure it in terms of startup because we technically can do so. It'd be interesting to get a view from Daniel to some degree if Daniel's have to do that, because again,
yes,
you're a local community deliverer, and
absolutely. So we do record that. We are a community development finance institution, and we are the only CDFI in the UK that have 100% Black or minority ethnic representation on our board. So our entire board is people of colour. However, we could do better, and I think we struggle with, for example, getting our message out to local communities. Our attitude is, let's just get a message out to everybody, to all business owners. But there is a lot more that we could be doing, and I would welcome a conversation with you to give us a little bit of guidance and a little bit of help and a little bit of strategy and direction to say, you know, you do want to help people of an ethnic minority background. How are you doing that? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Because we just, you know, we don't know all the answers. So any help that we could have, that would be wonderful.
And of course, I was hoping you're going to remember the Alone Together report word for word, Leslie. It's only been 3 years.
I know, exactly.
But there were a whole host of statistics out. I know they say lies, damn lies and statistics, but it was useful to talk about things like having a network, confidence levels, background money. Remember that one? Because again, there were certain Black community groups that were very low down in terms of having resource going. But the flip side of that, as you may recall, is that their success rate was, and their growth rate was so much higher, despite starting from a lower standpoint. So it comes back to the real benefits there. There's all sorts of structural issues. So I could put a slide up, they're corporate slides, by the way. I can put a slide up that tells you the great news story of startup loans. But I know that in terms of those venture capital funds, those equity funds, those scale-up businesses, the percentages remain scarily low. It's 2% for female founders. I won't even go into the fractions of 2% when you divide it down any further. And there is clearly an issue there. Bizarrely, one of the issues that I'm increasingly coming across is pitching. So as somebody that's attended certain pitching events, and apologies for anybody that did, we're all for people that came up and pitched male tonight. One, sorry, that lady in there, sorry. But again, we often find there's a real confidence issue there. There's usually a real confidence issue there for a whole host of reasons, which getting people to stand up in a pitch, and I know it was done for a reason tonight, really counteracts. And I've seen people cry. I say it after the event, now you've all done it. I've seen people cry on stage, and that's just not good. That's just not good. They're just so wrought up by it. I know somebody that pitches extremely well through experience.
Let me just get the microphone. Name and who you are.
Hi, I'm Digo, and I'm founder and MD of Pasomic, the personalized nutrition web platform. So I was chatting to you earlier, and you said that you judge, you select pitches for competitions, right? And related to the point that was made, what are you doing differently to get different outcomes in the selection of people who are going to appear in a pitching event?
Yeah, so I'm delighted to completely be able to dodge that by saying I don't select, I just look at the final shortlist. In that particular instance, there was a clear set criteria against which you evaluated, and it was based on 7 fairly key points, very clear from a pitch. What the really interesting thing is, which I particularly value your opinion on, is in that particular experience, they were split into 3 sections. And there were 3 sections. One was around purely female founders. One was purely around BME founders. And the last one, which I'm doing tomorrow, as you know, is MedTech. So actually, Innovate UK Edge took the view that they were actually going to separate out the applications based on gender ethnicity. So I don't know if that probably doesn't even answer your question, but yeah. What am I doing differently?
Yeah, there's a systemic lens that we're not addressing. And to address the systemic requires actually putting special measures in place in order to redress things. And at the moment, I think events like this are almost putting the emphasis on the community to, the deficit is in us somehow, and we need to do more, and we need to do things differently, and we need to, change ourselves in order to reach the goal. But what's being done differently from a systemic level in order to almost address the different starting point because of the structural issues that exist?
That's a great point, and probably way over my...
No, I would say it is. One thing I would say, Luce, and I think we've spoken about this before, I think it's the stage where organizations, institutions invest, because we know when you're speaking to businesses, you're speaking to organizations, and then to prove their worth, they will put a certain amount of money into it, pounds, pennies, and shillings. So,
good point. Why do we continue need to have events like this, and to separate those groups out the way I do is often a question I challenge myself, but that is the reality to some degree of where we are. I don't agree with it, but I agree with you. There's also some sort of systemic view changes that need to take part, and they need to do very quickly. And it is a personal frustration of mine, sitting where I do sit in an organisation, that we do those positive steps. We talk about the fact that, for example, we've signed up to the Investing in Women Code, so for another 197 organisations, but that in its own right hasn't changed the dial in that respect. So for me, it's things like, why do we put additional pressures on people if they don't have that experience of asking them to pitch? But that's the way that a lot of those competitions are done. You've been through that as well. For some people that works if you have that confidence, that background. If you don't, you're automatically starting from a different place. So I think we've got to look at doing things differently, to be brutally honest. And I don't know the answer to that, but I really genuinely value your input in terms of how we do that. My organisation, employee-wise, is probably 50-50 by gender, but in terms of ethnicity, it is not. It is not.
And that's where organisations tend to miss a trick, because it's showing in the boardroom that obviously the more diverse boardrooms are, the better performance you'll see from those organisations. So to me, I think it's a key things around being targeted, being specialised, and how much resource that is actually put in to those organisations. Because for you to be able to get a return on your investment and a return on the amount of ethnic minorities that come through and to be funded, women, founders, etc., it requires the amount of finance resources.
Yeah.
And one thing I'll just say on that, the way also you measure this in the third sector, they call it something called social return on investment. So it's about the investment that you put in, but actually you can actually measure it not just in monetary terms, but you can also measure it in the impact that it has on lives of people in the community. So it's in a sense, it's a double bottom line that I'm saying can be done, but it takes investment. And just one last thing I say before I pass it on is that when the sad death of George Floyd took place, and the ripple effect that took place across the globe, a lot of organisations were putting their hands in their pockets, throwing money at, listen, we need to do this, A, B, and C, to be able to show that we want change to happen. That has seemed to have died off now, and I think it's about time we revisit that and then start putting more investment into it. Because my only thing I would say is, well, what benefits ethnic minority communities benefits all communities.
So sort of over the last couple of years, I've seen changes from my lowly seat in Nottingham. So I've seen changes in terms of the types of investment managers that have been appointed to run some of our schemes and the relative diversity. Coming back to Leslie's point, despite, it's absolutely the right thing to do, but actually there's also an economic benefit, not just because of the lost benefit of not investing in certain genders, ethnicities, groups, or whatever, but actually they do generally make the right decisions and the accurate decisions because they're more reflective of the society that we operate in as well. So I think there's a slight generational issue there, but that's not going to jump that really poor 2%, 1%, fraction of 1% figure in the short term. But I've seen step changes, but I'm uncomfortable with step changes. I think it needs to be a revolution rather than evolution, but I don't have the answer. I wish I did.
Claude. This is just a thought. Could be good or could be rubbish. We'll see. From what I can see, I think we seem to be winging it about this issue. The idea that every now and then something happens that is bad, and before you know it, now we have windows full of black people in the windows of businesses. But actually, when you go inside, nothing changes, and that becomes some type of revolution apparently, but it's not. It's just something you do to have a bit of PR and say do something. Has any of you considered perhaps a framework that can guide businesses? Because it seems like there's a lot of things we don't know. But let's say we had like a framework that will be validated, that will be verified and validated by communities such as us. A framework that literally guides businesses what they should be doing, and that framework then is embedded within your culture of the business of your banks, whatever, and it becomes almost like a guiding force of what you're supposed to be doing. And at least it means that whatever you're doing, everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. Because I think many businesses function because you have a purpose, you have a mission and goals you want to achieve. And so why businesses continue to grow is because everybody is following that type of structure the business have created. So I'm thinking, should we have exactly the same thing, but to remove this issue, a guide that everyone follows, except instead of having management saying you do that, but it becomes a part of your culture. So even if you have a new staff, they all are there trained to breathe the framework and they're following it, doing the things that really is there to revolutionize this. And I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what I was saying.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So there's something called ESG, which again is another horrible acronym. I think my issue with ESG, so ESG principle around 3 subject areas. My issue is I think that's become a little bit hijacked by sustainability rather than the other parts of ESG. So I think it's being hijacked at the moment, rightly or wrongly, by sustainability and green, net zero and green issues as principles. But certainly what you'll find is a lot of those forward-thinking organisations in the public-private sector are embedding some of those principles of ESG into the way they operate completely. I know we are. But again, what's interesting, when I was thinking, we do have that Investing in Women Code, which is really around measurements, progress towards addressing those issues, but around gender. I don't think we've got an equivalent in terms of ethnicity. but I might be wrong. I have to know.
Not that I know. Not that I know. Yeah.
So maybe that's a suggestion that we need to be looking.
It's quite telling because when the gender laws were passed in the UK, you always tend to get gender laws passed before race, just the way the UK operates, etc. You have in political parties, you'll have what they call AWS, all women shortlisting, and then you don't necessarily move on to race. So that's something that we need to discuss as a country, how we prioritize one protected characteristic over the other, because you're living in a world of what's called intersectionality. You know, if you're happen to be disabled, minority, female, etc., you get a triple whammy in a sense, and so it needs investment. It needs further thought about how we can break down, some of those barriers. You're always going to get people trying, pushing, wanting to do better, etc. And I think it's just about institutions meeting with businesses, halfway, so we can get some change. Yeah. Any other questions from the floor? Yeah. So the next person who asks a question, then, the next person asks a question, then gets a startup. Who can? Yeah.
Yeah, this is an easy way to get the book. So how would businesses work for something like an idea that I've got for myself, which is to provide therapy in the community? So it would be, an individual providing a small service for a big outcome, which would benefit the community as a whole. And for me to be able to do it in the way that I plan to do it, I would have to, pay myself initially, because I'm thinking that the types of young people that should I just do the pitch now? Shall I just, I'll try it. I'll give it a go. All right. So I work with, for over 30 years, I've worked with the local authority, working with young people in particular who struggle, whether it's because of educational provision difficulties or learning disability needs, or assessments in a variety of different ways based on their health and outcomes. But what I recognise is that parents get frustrated, they have their own issues, their own backgrounds, and sometimes that quality therapy that they would benefit from to enable them to do a better job for themselves and to parent their children isn't available for them because of the types of the community that they come from. So in the work that I do, I recognise that if you don't get the quality service out for the parent, it has an adverse impact on the child, and then it has an impact on education and the outcomes for that child that they have in the later on in life. So what I want to be able to do is to provide transformational therapy for parents, so that they feel good as people, so that they can parent better. So how would someone like myself get money to do what I do with all the skills, knowledge and rich resources that I have, knowing the local authority and knowing the community and knowing the people that I want to serve? How would I be able to do this rich work and get paid well for it in some sort of way? Can I get a book, please?
Got to wait till the feedback comes first.
Yeah, I mean, that is the challenge. There's no doubt about it. I mean, as an enterprise agency, we are approached every day of the week by people who have an idea, whether it's a social idea, commercial idea, etc. And it's how do they fund that business? Because even if you set up as a social enterprise, you've still got to generate money to either pay for resources yourself or whatever. And the simple answer is there has to be a cost mechanism in there somewhere. So either someone's got to pay for your service, or you've got to find an organisation organisation that's willing to pay for your service. And there's no easy answer really, because there's nobody going to give you, unfortunately, money to do that good work unless they've got the money and want to commission it. It's one of those catch-22 scenarios that we come across all the time. And it's a bit similar, I would say, in a sense around inventors. People who are looking to, who've got an idea about an invention, is trying to get somebody to like invest in that invention, the prototyping and everything else before they actually generate some income. So I feel your frustrations, because we deal with people like yourself every day, but it is finding a costed method of either an individual or an organisation to pay for those resources. And there isn't a simple answer as far as I'm concerned. It's all right. You can have a book.
Let's go on in the end. So give to Mike now.
So just a little reply. Sorry, what was your name again?
Yes. So without my account.
Jennifer. So Jennifer, one of the things that I would say is actually the Ingenuity program that kind of I work with. That is one of the things that we look to do, is help those people who are in that idea stage, who have a great idea, who really have found a niche that they know there's something there that's going to help people. And if you did want to join the program, you can do it around your work, but then actually compete for the opportunity to win some funding. And that can be sometimes quite significant funding toward the end of it. No cost at all, and it's completely flexible around your time, and it could be potentially a route for you to develop that idea, pre-trading, a chance to potentially win some money, and that could then springboard you into that next step of your business, where you may be going out to banks and looking for that kind of larger business loan. But if you're in that idea stage, I really would recommend it.
Brilliant, that's good. Yes, to see a few hands coming up there afterwards. I thought that it was only for students of university. Okay, so that's good.
We are national. It started as a student competition, and I apologise because I don't think I made it clear earlier when I was speaking. This started as a student competition. This is not what it is now. Right now, we are reaching into the communities. We want people from communities who maybe have no educational background, who have never been to any kind of university. Does not matter. You are more than welcome onto this project. We can help in terms of building those skills, help develop those ideas, and there is that competition phase where you can win up to a decent amount of money. It changes year on year depending on our sponsors, so I'm really not wanting to say exactly what it's going to be, but it is a good bit of money, especially when you're developing that idea. 25. So for the I believe for the Entrepreneur of the Year, I think it was £25,000. And we had smaller prizes as well regionally. And for certain winners, our national prize has got money as well in the range of between 5 and 10. I can't tell you off the top of my head. But if you did want to talk to me, I can take details, I can find out for you. For next year again, before we talk to sponsors, I can't promise the numbers, but I imagine it was similar ballpark.
Brilliant. And I'll come to some more questions. What you sparked, Mike? Your name and where you're from?
Thanks. So my name is Sahan. Actually, this is not a question. This is a comment. I came from Sri Lanka, and when I was in Sri Lanka, I tried a couple of businesses and I failed. The main reason is there wasn't an environment to support startups. And it's great to see this kind of events and environment and facilitators and universities also supporting. So it's great to see this kind of environment. So I want to thank the organizing committee, the facilitators, and the university for arranging this event. That's all. Thanks.
Round of applause, yeah. Brilliant. You can't have to applaud. You're all right.
You're right in it. All right. No, what's the ball? Yes. You should have 3 books on, but one less.
Oh, do you want to talk to me later? Okay, you don't want to ask questions. He wants to talk to you later. Okay, seeing as you mentioned money, yeah, people's ears are pricked up. Lewis.
It was here, Nottingham. Well, I'd say. Because again, as Mike quite rightly said, they could.
Okay.
If there's competitions.
Oh, okay.
Do people like pitching? If you look at skills that we have,
that we have people that with the potential.
Brilliant. So, any more questions? I know we come. These. Well, you can still ask the last few questions before we round up. Any more questions, burning questions that people have? No. That's good. Babs, did you have? Yes, Babs. Let's get them, bring the mic to you.
Thank you. My name is Babs Olufeko again. Just a quick question around investing in people as well. So apart from having a restaurant, my side day-to-day job as well, a passion of mine is I do software development. And one of the things I've noticed from experience is I've got some niche sort of like softwares as a developer that are things like custom declarations. So like a niche system off the shelf that I would have loved to sell on my own. But obviously I program on something called mainframe, which is backend IBM. So to get a mainframe, obviously an individual, I can't afford one. So my question is, will there be businesses or will there be companies that will invest in such?
That's it. But
yeah, something like that.
The tech. You want to get a mic?
Well, my background is tech finance, but before I got into property, it would have to be an investment. So it wouldn't be, we used to finance a lot of software and software development, but you're talking those businesses that has a very shiny, big balance sheet. So it's always called a balance sheet lend. So in terms of investment, and also if you're doing a lot of development, and Lewis, you probably know more than I do about R&D tax credits, you can claim a lot back from the development you've already done. I don't know if you're aware of R&D, research and development.
Probably, but I don't think that way. At the moment,
one of these shining ideas, so one of the things I do at the moment is I write bank loan softwares.
Yeah.
And half of the banks in the UK use that.
Yeah.
And that was something I developed originally, and I've got a shining part to it, and I've approached the company I work for, which is Target. And one of the things I've said is they weren't too keen on like, okay, why don't I just develop this for the business? At the moment, I'm a consultant with them, but I don't want to develop that for them. It's my idea. I want to sell that niche to someone else.
Yeah. I get out a lot and I've got a great big network. So there is a specific person who, it's technology, supply chain is his business. And I think it's not my area of expertise, especially not in investment and equity, but he would be the best person to maybe have an initial conversation with. Obviously, you've got, startup loan might start you off at some point, won't it? If you're starting up with a business, but if you're looking for investment, technology specialist, he's the sort of point where they've got to a certain, you might be a bit early for him, but he'll put you in the right direction, come back. Then he knows different ways to get different fundings, but specifically on technology and renewables and all the rest of it. So I can certainly introduce you.
Yeah, and we also happy to have a discussion with you. If we can help you, we'll try and point you in the direction of somebody else who can.
Brilliant. Okay, so if there's no more questions, I think we'll bring it to a close. But just want to say a round of applause and thank you to Ingenuity Mike for your work and support and hosting us tonight. So round of applause, everybody. Thank you. To Daniel from First Enterprise for your illuminating presentation. It was good. Thank you. Rebecca from One Stop Business Finance. Thank you again. Andrea from MBV. Thank you once again. And Lewis Stringer, the organisation British Business Bank, who we're doing much more work with in the future. We can say that, can't we, Lewis? I'm putting my politician spin on him. So that's our return on our investment in it, Lewis. So no, definitely be good to do some more work. But thank you again, Lewis, for all your work. Thank you. So once again, spread the word, everybody. Be global. If you can just register your businesses if you haven't done so on the website, so we can keep you updated about further events, further opportunities, and we'll be linking in with all of our partners for further work. So thank you and a safe journey home. Thank you.